right, all right. This is You Can't Make This Shit Up. Dan and David. We are your hosts. Our producer of You Can't Make This Shit Up, John D. Maria of 7th Legion Multimedia. Remember that, everyone. 7th Legion Multimedia. This is the Jay and Washington Network. Thank you for tuning in. We enjoy the comments, yay or nay, whether you agree with us or not. We'd love for you to be a part of our community and have that conversation with us. And this particular conversation, we're going to be talking about wage theft. And a Chicago style pizzeria here in Orlando was just recently fined by the federal government for withholding wages for some of its employees. And I did a little research on this, and believe it or not, with all of the, I guess, social media posts of people rampaging stores like Walmart, Target, Apple, so forth and so on. Believe it or not, wage theft is pricier. Well, let me put this: it's more expensive for businesses than a lot of these thefts that are happening, shoplifting, so forth and so on, that are happening across America.
Yeah, I mean, obviously this is inexcusable. I
Very.
think they should have got hammered even harder. I believe they got it's 120,000.
If I recall, yes.
Yeah, so I mean, I feel like they escaped a little bit. I feel like this is unforgivable. I mean, this is people's lives, and I mean,
Mhm.
if you can't trust your employer, then why are you working? So it's discouraging.
Mhm.
Can't say that I'm surprised. Um,
And, and the research that I've done is that this is rampant across America. This is more prevalent than most people talk about, and it's not necessarily discussed in the media as some of these more viral moments of people breaking into a Gucci store or a Target or so forth and so on. Wage theft is very it's very important. It is prevalent, and it affects individuals who are just trying to do honest day's work for honest day pay.
and right, and you're talking about like the other theft. I mean, that's not necessarily within the business's control. I mean, this is coming straight from the man in charge. So it's not like
Right.
this just happens on accident or like a group of people get out of control. I mean, this is calculated. They know what they're doing. They're sweating it out,
Right.
waiting to get caught and hoping that they never do. So I think this is far more premeditated, and there's true evil behind this.
Exactly. And it's like you said, it's premeditated, it's done over a certain amount of time. There's intent to defraud people who are making the honest days, labor for honest days pay.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm not surprised it's coming from Giordano's. They're used to being able to take that income tax off their Illinois employees. So, you know, they move down here, they don't reap the benefits like they do up there. But yeah, I couldn't say that I was surprised when I read the article.
And unfortunately, here in Florida, there was an agency that would protect workers from this type of behavior by their employers. However, that agency hasn't been in effect for over 20 years now. And so there's no protection at the government level for workers who succumb to wage theft by their employers.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't know if there's necessarily like a right way to go about it. I mean, this is just unfortunate, but I mean, unfortunately everyone just gets screwed. I mean, there's no system that benefits everyone evenly, and unfortunately it's the lower middle class is getting affected right
Right.
now in Orlando. So
And the Giordano's here in Orlando is not the only one who has been in front of the federal government for this type of charge. Orlando Health also had workers working off the clock, withholding overtime pay, and they faced sanctions by the federal government for this. And so, for an economy here in Florida that is largely based on hospitality in the hotel industry, the service industry, this really hits people hard in their pocketbooks because they really don't make that much money here in Florida.
Yeah, and at least at least we see Florida stepping up to to combat it, where they can, like that's two examples where they've, you know, fought for the little guy. I hope that there are more instances where that's the case. Unfortunately, I would say 99.9% of it goes unanswered,
Mhm,
it's what we know about across the board is less than
mhm.
what is actually occurring. So
Now, whether this makes the case for more unions or collective bargaining actions by employees of the service industry, whether it's Orlando Health, whether it's Giordano's, that's a different story. I'm not too sure how the unions play into this. If they contacted workers at Giordano's, it is a small business, but Orlando Health, for instance, that would be ideal for the unions to talk to those workers and say, hey, maybe it's time that you all collectively get together, sit down with management, and protect your rights.
yeah, and I just don't necessarily see that happening here.
Yeah,
I don't think Florida is very friendly to unions.
it's a right to work
Um,
state. That's correct.
so I don't see it going that way. I see it being more of like a case by case, like somebody's going to have to step in to
Mhm.
say, you know what, this isn't right. And hopefully, like the people that this is affecting, I hope that they're being overcompensated rather than undercompensated. I think, if somebody had 10 grand worth of wages withheld from them, I hope that they're getting 15. But unfortunately,
Yeah,
I don't think that's the way it'll probably happen.
I
So,
I
uh,
tend to agree with you on that point. 10 grand alone is a hard hit to the pocketbook. And if you're working for a pizzeria or a hospital organization like Orlando Health, uh, it, that type of money goes a long way here in Florida, or it doesn't, depending on your situation. But that's a hard hit, and that's a pretty sad situation that an employer would withhold that type of money.
120,000 seems, like I said earlier, like it's light. You know, I
Mhm.
find it very hard to believe that that's all that they're being forced to cough up.
Right. Had a little accident over there. I think everything's okay. But you know, maybe this is legislation that either side of the political aisle can introduce in the state legislature, seeing that there's no regulatory agency in Florida government to protect workers, laborers from this type of criminal activity. Maybe one of the Democrats will introduce this type of legislation since there is not a agency that has been in um, established or effective to address this particular issue for the last 20 years.
In your opinion, what do you think it would take for an agency like that to be reestablished in a
Ooh.
predominantly Republican state?
Again, with the status of the Democrats being a super minority, the opportunity for something like this to get bipartisan support is pretty much slim to none. It's unfortunate. Um, However, that should not stop Democrats, their allies, and like-minded Republicans from presenting that type of legislation and see at least present it and stand by it and be vocal about your support for it and see how far it goes in the legislature. People and I'm pretty sure And when you research a little bit more, there was possibly a bill that was presented to the legislature in maybe the last session or the last several sessions that never got out of committee. Um, there's really no new ideas out there, and perhaps maybe this idea for a regulatory agency or department to protect laborers, workers, was presented, but never went far.
Yeah, I mean, I don't foresee a Florida where this is something that gets reestablished. Um, and unfortunately, I think it's going to be at the expense of these workers, but also like there's some accountability to be had. Like people need to get out and vote if they want change as well. I mean, if
Exactly.
you're being affected by it and you're not willing to go be a responsible citizen, then
Right.
not all of the blame can be on corporate.
That's
So,
true. I said
um,
there's some self responsibility in this also.
right. I
Know your
mean,
rights.
and granted, it is a super majority, but at some point, it has to be, you know, accountability on both ends, saying like, these are the
Mhm.
people that our community have voted in, and you know, if you want that agency to be in, effect, and you feel that you know, your job should be unionized, then maybe that's something that you should, as a citizen, be more responsible about. So,
I agree. I agree. There's a place for unions. There's a place not for unions. At the end of the day, it does boil down to personal responsibility. Know your rights as a worker. Know your rights as an employer. Know your rights on either side. I think this is a great place for unions to at least advocate for workers at the state level and push legislation without having to actively um, unionize workers. Hopefully, there is some legislation in the works. We'll see this next session.
yeah, and I think as an employee, you need to be like responsible for your own wage as well.
Hmm.
I think a big reason that you know Giordano's is able to get away with this past time is because of direct deposit. I
Ah,
mean, it
yes,
used to be you get your paycheck and you see it laid out for you, and people
that's
just
true.
don't care anymore. They're like, "Oh, there's my
The
money.
money's in the account.
I don't have
Correct.
to go to the bank today."
That's a
And
good point.
I think that um, again, hold yourself accountable,
Yeah,
and just because the money's coming back this time doesn't mean it will next time. So learn a lesson. Don't be blind, and really ask questions. I mean, you are entitled to ask questions to your employer.
that's correct.
You're It's their responsibility to show it to you, but they're not going to if you don't ask.
Right.
So,
Protect yourself at all times.
yeah, I mean, no one's gonna volunteer to protect you. So you need to be at least, somewhat responsible
Right.
for your own chips.
It's your labor. It's your money.
Agreed.
Final.
Just do your best to be responsible, and don't let people take advantage of you. Is basically what I have to say. Is that this? I don't understand how this happens with the amount of technology we have.
Exactly.
I don't understand how people don't know what's owed to them, and that's never. I've never established direct deposit. I'm always on top of that, but
Right.
some people some people just trust and they shouldn't, and
That's right.
don't trust anyone.
Exactly.
Anyone.
You have to look after your own best interests, your own best interests of your family, of your livelihood. And I remember before there was direct deposit, get that paycheck, I would be checking the top portion of the paycheck that it was attached to. You know what taxes were being taken out of my health insurance, my state taxes, my union dues. And when we went to direct deposit, I always made sure that I pull up the receipt, I guess, and I will download it and print it out. And I had a folder of all my receipts of my deposits and make sure that, you know, the union dues were taken out was the right amount. The taxes that were taken out were the right amount. I had it down to a percentage. How much of my paycheck, what percentage was taken out, and that it was consistent across the board every month, every week.
Yeah, it's like when you check out of the hospital and you ask what the fees are for,
Mm-hmm.
suddenly your bill shrinks. I think you need to, you know, ask questions
Oh yes,
and understand where your money is going. And if it's not working for you, then who is it working for?
bingo.
So that's pretty much my final word. Don't trust anyone. Don't trust, you know, don't trust the government. Don't trust politicians. Don't trust your neighbor. Yeah, America, basically.
You can trust us to deliver quality content every week, almost every day. We've got You Can Make This Shit Up, our flagship podcast. We have the Morning Constitution. We have the David Washington Show. We have Countertop Politics and everything in between. So please comment. We love for you to comment, be a part of our community. Like, share, hit the notification button. Dan, John, Kellen earlier, Kendall earlier on our other shows. We love you. Please check us out. We'll see you the next time.